than just read. The reading is a relatively new activity in human history.
Yeah,
It's only
exactly.
it's only a few hundred years old for most people, and a few thousand years old for a few.
Hmm.
And so for tens of thousands of years, we spoke and listened and memorized.
Hmm.
Some of the great poems of antiquity in every language were spoken and memorized. So that's why I tell people to read out loud if you want to learn the best way. I
Hmm.
also write things by hand and then I type them to learn. Again, it's a bit of a counterintuitive way of working.
I see.
Um, the more senses you engage, the better you learn and comprehend. Believe it or not.
Yeah, the main thing is comprehend, right? We can go over a page like in a minute, but we ain't gonna understand anything. The main thing is to find that sweet spot in which you can read, and as you're reading, your mind is accepting that thing.
Yep.
So it seems like it's gonna take a while. I'm just a beginner, right? I just started reading for like a year ago.
Uh huh. Yep. It's one of my favorite pastimes. Playing
Exactly,
or reading.
and I wish someone would have told me like when I was way younger. Like I'm 18 at the moment, but I wish someone would have told me like when I was 10 or 11, so I could start reading at that time and bear the fruit of that thing at my current age.
Yeah. Well, you still got a lifetime to read.
Let's see. Hope so.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Well, we have quite a few familiar faces from last evening where we were talking about traveling safely. Now we're going to talk about how to be safe enough not to hurt your back carrying a bag, a heavy bag. Hi, Cindy. How are you? Good to see everyone. We've got Elaine and John. Hi, John. And I forgot your wife's name. Please remind me.
Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And Susan's got some great flowers out this morning. Cindy. Hi, Mary. Hi, Josephina. Jane, Sandy, Josie, Jack, Jeannie, Yuta, Lorraine, Danya. Nice to see you all this morning.
Good morning.
Just getting our last minute things set up here while people join the class.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we've got Michael here as our TA who can help you with any issues and will gather notes and questions and put information in the chat as he's able. Good to have everybody with us on, well, I guess this is Thursday morning. I almost said Friday morning. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do the top 10 travel tips, TTTT. Today we're on how to pack a carry-on for 2 weeks. Hi, Pat, and you've also joined. Good to have you here. Sandy. I may not get everyone's name. I'll try. Something Zoom does is people join in. It doesn't always put them at the bottom. It sometimes rearranges everybody on the screen. Nice to have you all here. While we're waiting, if folks could put in the chat where they hope to travel to this year, if they hope to travel. I mean, it could just be to travel down to the park downtown if you're not going to go anywhere. But if you have travel hopes for the year, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm hoping to travel to Maine in a couple of weeks. My first time on a plane since October of 2019. I'm looking forward to it. It will be interesting to see how different it is from the last time I flew on a plane. Otherwise, I have no other plans for the year. That doesn't mean don't have hopes. I'm just going to wait and see how things pan out.
I had a trip planned to leave on the 10th of May to Boston, but I got kind of concerned about the COVID still, so I canceled that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yutta is hoping to go to Michigan and California. Josie wants to go to Hawaii and then Las Vegas. Elaine wants to go to Italy, but of course that may not happen. I also want to go to Italy, and I don't think it's going to happen for me this year, but we'll wait and see. And Sandy wants to go to Northern California to see his son. You haven't seen him in 2 years. That is a long time. I have a daughter who just came home. I hadn't seen in almost a year and a half. No, I hadn't seen in a year. Sorry, I did see her in New York. That's right, about a year ago. John and Nancy are hoping to go to Oregon, and Pat is going to Wisconsin in a few weeks from Florida. Jeannie wants to do local camping in Michigan. I can believe that. Cindy's staying in the U.S. this year, going to California and Nevada to see relatives. And in 2022, she's hoping to go to Denmark, Copenhagen, and Knoxkov, where your husband was born. Wow, Knoxkov. I don't know it, but I would like to go to. I've been to Denmark and like to go back. Mary wants to go to Houston and Yarmouth, Maine. Yes, Yarmouth. Sandy wants to go from Michigan to California. Melinda's leaving for Michigan on Saturday. And Lorraine wants to go from Michigan to New Jersey. Well, I'd be interested to hear about people's travel experiences. I'm hearing all sorts of different news out there about travel. Things like it's getting very expensive to get a rent-a-car. In fact, I was going to get a rent-a-car from the Portland airport to Auburn, Maine, visit my son, 45-minute drive, and it is horrendously expensive. It's tripled in price. I think I'll take a limousine. Amtrak, on the other hand, is offering dirt cheap prices. You have to get on there and look for them. They won't necessarily alert you to them. My daughter's going back to New York from Washington to New York on the Acela for $62 one way, which is probably about, I'm going to take a guess, half to 3/4 less than what it normally costs. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Dee. Folks have just put in the chat where they hope to travel this year. And Susan has got a daughter in Vienna and had twins in December, and you're eager to visit them. She told me she thinks they may open the borders this summer. Yes, that is what I'm hearing. And Melinda has a home exchange in Upper Michigan this summer, but the Michiganders are headed for their lake home for the summer.
I tried, but man, they all wanted a Florida exchange, but they said not this year because they've all got family coming in for they're all just heading for the hills this summer.
Yeah, well,
everyone is so anxious to get out of the house.
Everyone is anxious to get out of the house. Back to that question about going to Vienna. I know the Europeans do have high hopes to let Americans in because we give them a lot of tourist income. And so I'm expecting they will. And we talked last night a little bit in Traveling Safely about probably a third of the session was just talking about how to keep your health safe. Thinking of the pandemic, and I will be doing a class probably in 2 weeks about that. Called something like where can I travel when? And it's not so much a class to tell you that, but a class to give you the resources so you can find out when different locations open. In the US, pretty much you can travel anywhere within the US, and you can also travel to Mexico, Costa Rica. Those are 2 places in our same hemisphere, and they're worth visiting. In fact, tomorrow I have a class on the foods of Oaxaca, so you might think you want to go to Oaxaca tomorrow after the class. Today, during the class, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. I will also pause and ask if there's any questions. This is mostly a demonstration by photo of about packing for a carry-on for a 2-week trip. Now, let me just say, this class today is not a prescription on how to pack or travel. I'm not telling you what you're supposed to do. You have to decide that. This is a class for people who would like to think about how they can just pack as lightly as possible. And I'll give you some tips on what I carry and how I do it so that you can say, yeah, that's something for me. I've traveled a lot out of the country. And I used to travel regularly for work within the US and also quite a bit to Canada. And I flew a fair amount, enough to accumulate a lot of extra frequent flyer miles, which I still haven't used up in the last 3 years since I left my job where I traveled a lot. And I learned to pack light and have a checklist, for example. That's one of my top 10 tips tomorrow. I'll give you a secret ahead of time, is to have a checklist if you travel a lot. But even if you don't travel a lot, even if you're just like, I'm going to go overseas this year, I'm going to go to California next year, make yourself a checklist. You do it once, you have it forever, and you can always modify it. Of course, my wife and I have a checklist. It's broken into 2 parts. One is called the out the door checklist, and the other one has everything else you need to do to get ready, the stuff you put in your suitcase, the things you get ready ahead of time. And then there's the out the door, like, have you got your passport? Have you got your cell phone? Have you got your cell phone charger? Your license, driver's license, a credit card, cash, you can go, because you can get anywhere with those things. But if you don't have them, you can't get anywhere. And I've got a daughter who can tell you about a terrible experience when she went to the airport for a flight to Mexico and realized she didn't have her passport with her. So anyway, we all have to have that checklist. She has one now.
We got a question from Melinda.
Yes,
Yeah,
Melinda.
she's saying, ever consider a class on other medical problems, travel with insurance, and what to expect in different countries if you get sick or hurt?
Melinda, thanks for that suggestion. Let me look at putting together a class on that. I know it is a question a lot of people have, is should I get travel insurance? And I have and I haven't. So I can tell you what I've done, but I can also find out what others have done. So if any of you are interested in that class and or would like to share your experiences with health issues traveling, especially abroad, put that suggestion in the chat, or also you can just, I'll send you my email address in the class notes, Russ the Guide. It gets set up, and you can email, you can put the suggested class title, and or if you'd like to be a resource or give some ideas for that, because I love other people's ideas. I don't have all the experience, every possible experience. And so I enjoy also gathering that from learners and having learners help with classes. That's where we build that. That's where the community comes in and we help each other out. So travel insurance and health issues, especially if you're traveling abroad, are very good questions. And I think it's worth a class. So let me look at that, Melinda. Let me do a screen share with you. And you should see something that says how to pack a carry-on for a 2-week trip.
Yes.
Great. I'm sharing. That's good to know.
At some point, I want to know what Utah looks like. This is driving me nuts.
Well, if Yuta wants to put her camera on, she can. Yuta's been in a lot of our classes. The idea for this class came up because this is a very important topic. And in one of my top 10 tips, I'll give you another one ahead of time tomorrow, is to only carry a carry-on, no matter where you go, with some exceptions. And I'll give you one of my horror stories of somebody who didn't take a carry-on on a 2-week trip to England, who never got their luggage, that kind of thing. But what I like about a carry-on, and this is kind of a spoiler alert for tomorrow, but it's because this is the class, why not let it all the secrets out now? When you have a carry-on, it limits the number of things you have, which is good. Secondly, you don't have to worry about a bag being lost. And if you're on a flight with several legs, the chances of losing or misplacing luggage increase every time the airlines have to transfer your bag. So a direct flight from one place to the other is not very likely that they'll lose it. They still can, no promises. But when you make those connections, that's when the airlines start to do their business and lose your bag or get delayed, and then promise you it'll come the next flight and it doesn't. The other reason I like a carry-on is when you get to your destination, you take the carry-on out of the overhead bin and go. You don't have to go to luggage claim and wait for your thing to come around. You're gone. So you can save 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes or a half an hour. Depends on how busy the checked luggage area is where you're going. So anyway, it's and also sometimes if let's say if you're traveling internationally and you've got a checked bag and you get delayed at the border control, your bag might be sitting there for a long time. And sometimes depending what the airport is, what country you're in, they may take that bag and put it somewhere else for a while. So you don't have to hunt it down. So I really like the carry-on principle. I'm Russ, your guide. I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is in Western Virginia, the Shenandoah Valley, which is a little bit cool today, but sunny and nice, especially since I planted my garden the other day. We've had a couple of days of rain, which has been really helpful. I'm a writer, a walker, and a cyclist. I formerly was a book publisher, and as a publisher, my favorite thing was to help authors shape their ideas into a book and then hand them the book when it was published. I love that. I'm now a full-time guide with Get Set Up, and that's because I love all the energy I get from older learners. Get Set Up helps you learn useful skills from people like you so you can do wonderful things. And we learn from each other. That's why I always encourage giving suggestions, making comments, asking questions in these classes, and we always have time for that at the end. Ideally, we can see you and your cameras are on. You can request a recording after class of this class. You email help@getsetup.io. If anyone is joining by live stream, and we are live streaming today, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class. Lastly, Get Setup's not paid to promote specific products. We're just an educational organization. All right, let me start with a definition of what a carry-on suitcase is. It is typically 22 by 14 by 9 inches. Sorry, I don't have the millimeters there. Would be useful. That is the average allowance that most airlines give for a carry-on and overhead compartments. That is on a standard airliner where there's 3 seats at least on each side. When you get to smaller planes that have maybe 2 on one side and 1 seat on the other, the smaller local jets, a standard carry-on may not fit there. In fact, it's not likely to fit in the overhead compartment, and then you'll have to gate check it, which isn't the worst thing in the world. At least you got it with you. You may have to wait a few minutes for the gate check. That's why I've got another suitcase I'll show you. But that is a standard carry-on, and the airlines have specific requirements, and they usually say this measurement. However, let me warn everyone, because the big thing I'm going to talk about today is not about the size, it's about the weight, is that some airlines don't limit carry-ons by size, but they limit them by weight. And I found that out several years ago when I was flying back and I tried to put a heavy carry-on on a Lufthansa flight. And they put it on a scale and said, your bag is too heavy. You have to check it. So anyway, I've learned my lesson that also check the airline weight regulations. Now, carry-on bags come in several different sizes. This one on the left is what's called a spinner. It's got 4 wheels which swivel around completely on the bottom. And that spinner, actually, the one I have there is smaller, slightly smaller than a typical carry-on. This one is actually the size that will fit in those little regional jets. And I got it because a lot of the flying I did was on regional jets. And I liked having a bag, a carry-on that was small enough that would fit on those regional jet overheads. And I noticed that somebody's put the millimeter size in the chat. Thank you for doing that. On the right hand, I've got just something that's a tip for anybody. I have some identifiers in my on the top of my bag, and because a lot of people have black bags that look the same. And you might think, well, what do you need that for if you're on a carry-on? Well, you don't need it if you're reaching up and grabbing your bag out of the overhead bin. But if you have one of those situations where you gate check your bag and they put 25 black bags up on the jetway, you want to be able to spot yours, or as happened to me once, you want to spot somebody pulling your bag away accidentally. Whoops, hey buddy, that's my bag. Oh, sorry. Looks just like mine. Well, they're all black. The other type of bag that's very common. This one is a spinner right here. It's got those 4 wheels on the bottom. And those are very handy for getting through airports, hotel lobbies, and down airplane aisles. But they're not useful for a lot of stuff because they're not very heavy duty. So that's why I like, they call these rollerboards, which has 2 heavy duty wheels on the back that are, and this is one I took some time to buy. And it has heavy duty wheels that are replaceable. Why do I have that with heavy duty wheels that are replaceable? Well, for one thing, if you're going to drag that bag anywhere but the hotel lobby, through the airport, or down the aisle of the airplane, you may need some heavy duty wheels. You might be pulling it over cobblestone. You might be pulling it down a mile of sidewalks. And I have had it happen when I was in Germany one time that one of my wheels just gave out and I had to haul that bag by hand another half a mile to the subway station, on and off the subway train, etc. So I found out later that you can get some brands where the wheels are replaceable. So if that wheel wears out on you, you can put a new one on. This is my standard carry-on bag right here. This fits all those dimensions. And one other thing I'll show you about it is expandable. So you can see down here, you can expand it, I would say 1.5 inches to almost 2 inches if you really cram stuff in there. Now, we're not talking about cramming stuff in today, but it is a useful thing to have in a carry-on bag. The carry-on bag also has some compartments at the top here. Let me back up one slide and show you. Whoops, we didn't go back one. It has a useful compartment up here, which I really like. You can stuff things in there if you want to put in an electronic, some of your electronics or a book or something like that, something that you want to be able to have very accessible to you. The other thing about when you're choosing a carry-on bag, besides looking at the wheels, and I would say getting a carry-on bag, think a little bit more about the durability versus the cost. I'm not saying you have to spend $300. There are people that spend that much on a carry-on bag, but $50 or $40 might be a bit cheap. And one of the things where they save money on is the zippers, and zippers can give out. And there is nothing worse than being on a trip and you got to get home and your zipper is broken. Now, what are you going to do to hold that bag together to get home? So I always do a little research, read some reviews on the bags, and make sure they have heavy duty zippers. Actually, I worked for a while once in an industrial sewing shop, so I know a little bit about zippers, brands of zippers, so I know a little bit about those. And this bag, for example, has some nice heavy duty zippers. So what I like about it is the wheels and the expandability and the heavy duty zippers. And of course, it has a handle that telescopes in and out, which you'll see a picture of in a moment. So anyway, just to sum up, when you're thinking about buying a bag, think about the wheels. Most spinner wheels are good for airports, airplanes, and hotel lobbies. Again, they're handy. That little bag I've got on spinners, if I'm just like going to go to the airport, go on the airplane, get a cab or a bus to my destination, and I'm done, and I don't need much stuff, it'll actually do. Now, here's some of the stuff that I pack. Let's go back up here for a trip. And this is showing you a little bit of what Russ calls overpacking, just so you can see how much you actually can get in if you think about it. So when I'm traveling, I like to think and about my clothing. This is showing you all my outerwear. Okay. So I have my hat, which I'm actually wearing. This is a outdoor research cap, which I like because it folds up to practically nothing. And it's, of course, easily washable. I have a travel umbrella, which gets very small and is lightweight. My wife has one too. We have a set of them. They're different colors, so we can tell them apart. This is a windbreaker. I'm trying to think of the brand name. I've forgotten. This is a fleece. This is a Polartec, bought at Costco of all places, very warm. This is a rain jacket. This rain jacket is breathable. So I got this at REI. And this is something which you would only take if you're going to go somewhere where you're going to be cold, like in the 30s, 40s, lower 50s a lot. This is a puffer jacket that is actually it's got a down lining. A lot of them that you can get today from various brands, and they can cost anywhere from $50 to $250, usually have some kind of synthetic lining. And actually the synthetic lining can be very good. So you can go either way. I bought this one. This is a Jerry brand. And this was on sale at Costco. And I got it because it's very lightweight. Down is very lightweight and it folds up very small, as you see. So this is all the outerwear I need. And it folds up like this. So the windbreaker zips up into one of the pockets and becomes very small. The raincoat doesn't zip up into itself, but it rolls up very small. I can mush the fleece down as much as I can. I can also roll the down jacket up as much as I like. So it all can take very little space. And it's also very lightweight. So I tell people when they're thinking about clothing, think about wicking, think about weight, and think about how you can hand wash it. You know, it's quick dry properties. So practically everything I have with me has all or part of those properties to it. This is the rest of my clothing. Now I'm wearing some clothing when I travel, so I don't have my pants, and I have a pair of cools that have zip off legs so they can convert to shorts, and they have some cargo pants pockets with zippers inside of them that make them pretty hard for someone to reach in and grab. Underwear, an extra shirt. So I'm wearing a shirt, but this is an extra one. This is an outer layer. I'll show you, a quarter zip. And I have 3 pairs of socks, a couple of undershirts, and a pair of shorts. And the pair of shorts, why a pair of shorts? If you're wearing some, well, if you want to wash what you're wearing, that I can put on the shorts. If it were winter or really cool weather, I might also bring along a spare pair of pants, or I might wear a different pair of what they call convertible pants, which are pants where you can zip off the legs and convert them into shorts. And of course, a couple of handkerchiefs. When I'm packing my carry-on bag, because there's these telescoping handles fold down into the bag, it creates these little deep gullies in here. And what I do is I just take all my regular clothing or underclothing and I just put and the umbrella, and I put those down in the gully so they fill up that extra space. And then I lay in the rest of my clothing on top of it. Now, one of the recommendations that's often made is to roll your clothing, and that is a good recommendation, and that can help you compact things. I'm showing you not rolled up because in this case, I don't need to roll them up. So they're a little nicer if I lay them out flat. And then I put everything else on the top. This is all my outerwear and my toiletry kit, which I'll show you a photo of in a minute. But they all lay on top of each other. And then anything else I need, a pair of sandals or lightweight shoes, can go on top of this. And I'll show you some of the other things that I bring along on a trip. Some of them go in a bag. And I don't carry them in necessarily the suitcase. I might have a bag along with me if I'm taking a flight or a train. But this all very nice, neatly goes down into a suitcase. And as I mentioned earlier, when I'm traveling, I like to think layers, I like to think quick dry, and I like to think wicking. And this is I have about 4 of these shirts or quarter zips that are UV 50, so they're good sun blockers. They're nice lightweight layers. I can wear them over a t-shirt, but I can also wear them over a button-down collar shirt. And I can still pull layers on top of these. And so this is a little bit lighter weight than a fleece. And these things are all very lightweight. When you're thinking of packing a bag, a carry-on, again, it's not so much about the volume as it is about the weight. Because where I was showing you before, you can roll things up and you can cram more and more in, but then you're just adding more weight. And I've been in situations both in the United States, in Central America or Latin America, and in Europe, where I've gotten to a destination and I've discovered that I had to haul a bag by hand up 5 flights of stairs up to the 5th floor, no elevator in the building. And that's a long way to carry a heavy bag. Or sometimes if you're trying to get in and out of that overhead bin, if it's really heavy, that's not easy. And I've seen people hit each other accidentally, didn't mean to do it because their bag was so heavy. When they were putting it in, they couldn't quite get it in, or they were pulling it out and it was just heavier than they realized it was. Actually, that's one reason why I tend to avoid pulling an overhead a bag out of an overhead bin when there's someone sitting under the spot. If I can't pull it out directly over where I am, I wait until that person gets up. I don't want to ever hit somebody. But these tend to be specialized clothing. Some people call it high-tech clothing, but a lot of wool these days, they do blends of wool, merino wool that is, they can be in thin layers that are quick drying and wicking, and they're more expensive, but they tend to not absorb odors. And so you can bring along fewer of those. I haven't gotten one yet, but I've seen a lot of these ads for these simple wool t-shirts, merino wool t-shirts, one shirt for 2 weeks. Haven't gotten one to try it yet, but I keep being told that's the thing to have. Something you can also bring along, I didn't demonstrate it here, but I use this when I'm carrying in a backpack. And a secret I'm not telling you today is that actually now when I travel almost anywhere, I go with a backpack. And this came after walking the Camino de Santiago and discovering that everything I needed could fit in a 15-pound backpack that I carried 500 miles across northern Spain. At that point, I realized I don't need most of the stuff I would take on a trip. And I had everything in some of these bags that are all color coded. They're different sizes. So I kind of memorized what's in a certain bag. And you can also do this with your clothing. You can put certain types of clothing in each of these bags, and then you know what they are for the trip, and then stuff the bags into the bag. But again, it's not so much about the technique of packing the bag. The real technique is having as little as you need to take along. And I always tell people, if you're not sure you need it, leave it at home. Most places you're going, unless you're heading off into the tropics or a safari, will have something you can buy that you need. So if you don't think you need it, try living without it. That's my toiletry kit. It's from LL Bean. My wife has one identical to it. Hers is a different color, so we can tell them apart. And they've got nice little zippered pockets. It's pretty lightweight, made of nylon, and I can get all my toiletries in it. My wife can just about get all hers in it. She has a few extra things. Depending on how you're going, you want to make sure you have a Ziploc bag for liquids, not necessarily for going in the US. I have TSA PreCheck, which does not require you to take out your liquids, but TSA PreCheck does you no good when you're leaving somewhere else and coming back to the US. They have their own requirements at security. So make sure you have a Ziploc bag along with you to put liquids in. I've spent 10 minutes at an airport somewhere in the world, I think it was in Zurich, emptying liquids out of every nook and cranny of my kit because I'd forgotten that I had things in there. When I used to travel frequently for my job, this kit lived at home on the wall next to in my bathroom. And I just used this kit all the time. That way, when I had to travel, I just grabbed the kit. I didn't have to think about what to put in it because everything I used every day was in it. Some other things you can use for packing are packing cubes. They're helpful, I find, for organizing things. I didn't show you the things today in a packing cube because I didn't have that much. But if you have a few more things, you can use packing cubes. What I showed you, and I will send you a packing list of what I take along for a basic 2-week trip, is for an international trip, where I'm trying to travel as lightly as possible and allow myself some room to bring things home. If I'm going somewhere in the US, like I have a sister who lives on the West Coast, if I fly out to see her, well, I know she's got a washing machine. I can bring more underwear, maybe an extra undershirt or two, or another extra pair of pants. And then a packing cube comes in handy for putting a few extra things in, and you can keep things organized. And what I like about these packing cubes is they have mesh. They're mesh sides, you can see through them so you can know what's in each cube. Another type of thing is similar to packing cubes. There's some small nylon bags also with mesh, and I have one that's a first aid kit. It's got a few first aid items in it. Actually, when I walked the Camino de Santiago, I put all of my toiletries in a bag. This is about 8 inches long, toothbrush, everything, because I took the absolute minimum. I always bring along with me some extra Ziploc baggies. Ziploc baggies are great for organizing things. They're great for, well, like I said, if you have to put liquids in them if you're flying back from another country where their security requirements are different than in the US. They're just handy to have extra ones along. So I usually pack a couple extra Ziploc baggies. These are the other things besides clothing that I bring along, and I'll show you some of them in detail in a minute. But I got my cameras. I have 2 cameras. This one just shows you the outer part of the case for my more expensive camera. Then I have a smaller, lightweight camera that was got a super zoom on it, and my hat. This is a stuff bag. I'll show you how this works. This is really nifty. A battery. I have a couple of these. I have one that's about 3 times the size of this. It has more capacity. This smaller battery, which I think you can get at a place like Best Buy for $5 or $6, has a complete cell phone charge in it. You can buy cases for your cell phone that are also batteries. But the reason I like to bring along an extra battery is I often will use it to charge my camera. If I'm in a pinch somewhere and I need to quick charge the camera, I've got an extra cable for the camera and I've got that battery. So it'll charge either my cell phone or my camera. So that's why I like having this extra battery. And I usually get the shortest cell phone cable that they make, which is about 4 feet. You can get a longer one, but most cases, a short one will do. If you're on a flight, you can generally charge your phone on the airplane while you're going somewhere. These are the things you plug into the wall. This is the typical one that we all know for an Apple product. This one right here is actually a European USB charger, as is this right here. And I bought these or found them. I found one of them in a hostel when I was overseas. It's exactly the same thing as this, which we use in North America, but it's got the 2 prongs for the continent. And so I don't actually need this thing when I'm traveling in Europe because I have on the continent, because I have this thing, which does the same thing. So that saves having to have the extra adapter. This one right here, I picked up on the streets at a stall in Rome. It's got 3 USB ports in it. Not 100% sure it'll work all the time, but it was only like 3 euros, 4 euros. But I would recommend to people, if you have your type of phone that you have, buy the brand name cable and charging thing for it, the wall adapter. They're more reliable than off brands. I've had off brands go bad on me, and you don't want to have that happen while you're traveling if you can avoid it. So that's a handy thing you can have. Then having a USB port like this or adapter that goes into the wall saves having to have this extra charger and this thing over here, which is the wall adapter you use when you're overseas to plug your regular US wall items in. So basically this eliminates 2 of these right here. Another thing I bring along that's kind of handy is a half-liter bottle. This is one that had, I don't know, some kind of sparkling water in it. And it was a fairly thicker bottle and it's empty and it just sits up with my stuff. That's the kind of water bottle I use that I travel with. And I usually pack a couple of these. They weigh almost nothing. I could take along a nice water bottle from home, but it'll weigh more. And then I might leave it somewhere. And then I've lost a $10 water bottle. Often when I'm overseas, I'll buy, by the way, I'm not generally in favor of bottled water. I think it's wasted plastic. But when I went to Spain to walk for 6 weeks, I bought a half-liter bottle just like this in the Paris airport, and I carried it for the next 6 weeks all the way into Santiago and home. Cost me, I think, €1 to buy the sparkling water in the Paris airport, and then I had a half-liter bottle. That way, I figured if I lost it, I wasn't out anything. They're also very lightweight. And this particular kind, which is, I'm not sure what the brand is, it's kind of green, is quite sturdy. So they're a very lightweight alternative to bring your watch for having water. Again, here's my electronics. I got little tiny zipper bags that I like to put my headphones in. The old Apple iPhones had a nice little plastic case. The newer models don't come with that nifty little case. They're a bit different. So I put mine in a Ziploc baggie so it doesn't get all tangled up with other cords. Other things I bring along, I'm a reader and I like to bring books. I like to read books. So I grab one of these old mass market paperback sizes. I go out and I buy a cheap one. When I went to Italy, I wanted to read a book written by an Italian author, Ignazio Salone, Bread and Wine, one of the most famous novels in modern Italian history. So I thought I'd read that while I was traveling. It was beat up, dog-eared, and if I lost it or forgot it somewhere or wanted to leave it behind, there was no big investment in it. But that was a very lightweight, very compact alternative. I do bring, because I like to blog or write while I'm traveling, I do bring along an iPad mini, a lighter weight, much smaller. And it has this wall adapter. And next time I go abroad, either to the UK or to the continent, I'll buy one of these wall adapters that they use over there with the USB port. And that way I'll only need that. That's a slightly bigger wall adapter, higher amperage than the one for a phone. You can use it for a phone, but you need this higher amperage for an iPad. Two other things I bring along. On the left is that stuff sack I was showing you, which doubles as a knapsack, and I'll show you what that's like. It's an Osprey, and it's one of the best things I ever bought. Folds up very small, slightly, you can actually compress it to the size of your fist. I haven't got it compressed as small as it'll get. And on the right, I've got a folding duffel bag. So for years, my wife and I, when we would go abroad, we would do our Christmas shopping while we were overseas. We would buy souvenirs for our family. We have a pretty big family, an item of clothing or a toy or a Christmas decoration or some food to bring home to give to our kids. Well, that's now extra stuff that might not fit in our carry-on bag. So I bring along this folding duffel bag. It zips up into itself. It's very lightweight. And then here's what we do when we're coming back. That's the duffel bag here on the left. And I've got hardly anything in it. It gets quite big. You can jam a lot of stuff in there. So that's a handy thing. Then I check that on the way back. So I want to have a carry-on so that when I arrive at my destination, I can get going on my trip. I don't want to have the hassle of a lost bag. If I'm flying home, the bag doesn't make it the same day. Well, the airline will eventually get to my house. I'm in one place. I've never permanently lost suitcases. I know it happens to people. I have had airlines misplace something for several days, but never lost anything. So the fold-up duffel bag doesn't weigh very much, and it's a way that we can throw some stuff in to bring some gifts home. And then this is what the stuff sack looks like. I've got it on my front because we were talking last night about being safe on a subway or a bus in a country where you're worried about your security. You can jam a lot of stuff. I've got 2 fleeces in it and still got plenty of capacity. You can put a water bottle on the side. Very, very nice knapsack Osprey. I think it's about $30. Folds up to practically nothing, doesn't weigh much. So those are just some extra items I bring along, give me some capacity when I'm in a town or city or somewhere, and I want to just have a knapsack for the day. That's what I carry. And in fact, I often will put doodads and extra stuff that I want to have on the airplane with me in this stuff sack or in this, and use that as my under the seat bag, doubles for my under the seat bag when I'm on a flight. So, and then I can fold it up small and put it in my suitcase later if I'm not going to use it for the day. So those are some ways that I pack for a 2-week trip, and not just domestically, but also internationally, and get everything in one bag. And again, it's not about the volume. It is about the weight. And I think I mentioned having to get up a 5-story building with a bag. And that's when because a lot of countries they're older buildings, they don't have elevators in them. And I was really, really lamenting how heavy the bags were when I had to carry them all that weight, or in some cases drag them all that distance if they're heavy. Yes, Melinda, I do the exact same thing. I put clothes in that bag, stuff, just loose clothes that nothing can break. I put them in that duffel, and I put the stuff that I'm caring about in my suitcase with me. I also know if I lose some clothing in a duffel bag that I bought in the US, I can replace it. If I've bought some souvenirs or gifts for people, and I get home and they're lost, I can't go back. I can't replace them instantly. So yeah, I put my my souvenirs and things. I'm also a person who picks up a lot of brochures and maps and things while I'm traveling. So my weight does slowly increase when I'm traveling. One reason why I've got the resources to teach travel classes is I've got a gazillion postcards, maps, travel brochures, booklets that I buy while I'm traveling, so I can remember the history and the culture of all those things later when I'm home. Sandy asks if I can provide the names of the companies you've suggested. Yes, and I will. I'll give you the name of my suitcase brand, the Osprey. I'll give all those things. And because I'm wearing them, I didn't get to show you a picture of my Cools, Kuhl, that I got at REI. But I'll try to make sure the next time I do this class, I have a picture of those convertible pants. I think for a man, at least, I got to say convertible pants are the greatest invention. It saves having to carry an extra set of shorts along. Well, even though I do bring an extra set of shorts, I don't carry a separate pair of shorts, I should say. Someone asked here, any questions about travel backpacks versus bags with wheels? You know, are you, let's see, who was asking that question? Jeannie.
Yep.
A little more detail.
Okay, I have I actually just wanted to know if you had ever tried to use a backpack. I have an Osprey Farpoint 40, which is basically the size of a carry-on without wheels. So I bought that so I don't have to drag something through the airport, and I love it.
You know, my backpack is an Osprey Exos 38, and as I said, that's now what my wife and I use everywhere we go. We put them on our back. Once we figured that we could walk 500 miles with backpacks that weren't that heavy, we could just go anywhere with them. I thought maybe you were asking about, there are backpacks that have an extra set of wheels in them. They have a telescoping handle, and I actually have something like that. It converts into a backpack. But I found after I bought it, it even has a zip-off knapsack on it, not unlike the Rick Steves travel bags. But I found that I almost never used that convertible set of straps to carry it on my back that I would just
Ironically, I picked up an Osprey. It's an Ozone. It's one of the bigger ones. That's actually, it's a little bit bigger than the Farpoint 40, and it has wheels. It was at the garage sale. The backpack strap was ripped, so it was cheap. And because I had an older one that had the backpack straps with wheels, and I never used the backpack straps. I had bought it for when I was skiing and figured carrying ski boots, that would be good to do. But and it has the backpack, a smaller backpack that zips to the front, which I rarely use because it's too small, because I'll usually use that one with the wheels and then a bigger backpack. And I do a lot of mixing and matching. With the Farpoint 40, I bought that because when I was flying into the Wilmington, Delaware airport, it's a very small airport. You had to go outside, down the sidewalk, up the steps to get into the rental car place. And it was horrendous trying to drag a rolling bag up and down the stairs. So the backpack, same size as a rollerboard, was a lot easier to maneuver. I found that was a lot easier to maneuver.
Sure. And Melinda commented that the distance inside airports is getting longer, and that is true. Also, one other thing to say is that there are some airports where it is really long. Several years ago, I flew back from Frankfurt through London, and I had to transfer flights from London back to the US. And I'll bet I walked 1.5 miles through Heathrow Airport. I thought I was never going to get to my gate. So that is very true. Yeah, someone says last time she flew, she had to check your bag at the gate. You know, I'm really wondering what's going to happen now with airlines, people suddenly flying again. We've all kind of forgotten some of our tricks. I will say I actually sometimes have gate checked a bag if I didn't need it on a flight, if it wasn't that long, just to save myself a hassle of getting it in an overhead bin. You can go either ways.
One trick, I will say, one advantage of checking at the gate, and I found it's true, and I read it in the travel thing. If you check it at the gate, your bag is one of the first things off, which means when you go to luggage, it's one of the first things to come off the carousel. So you don't have a wait. And there are a lot of people who will plan on checking their bag, but they check it at the gate knowing that it'll be the first one off when they get to the carousel.
Yeah.
And if you're doing multiple things where you're worried about losing it, but
Well, in U.S. airports, a lot of time the gate checking, they bring it off of the jetway, which can be a weight. I think I've done that when my bag was kind of heavy. I used to have to carry books and stuff because I was a publisher. So sometimes my overhead bag got pretty heavy. And then I would gate check because I didn't want to haul it up. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it's something I used to experience, and I'll see if it experience it again when I get on flights, is people used to bring bags that were too big for the overhead bins, actually. I have no idea how they got them through security. I guess security didn't care. And they intended to either try to squeeze them in the overhead or gate check them. I guess it's one way to get around having to check a bag, the expense of checking a bag. But we'll see if the airlines are any stricter. It's almost like the airlines are starting fresh with all of us as we start flying this year, because last year at points hardly anyone was flying. Well, we're about out of time. I really appreciate all your comments. I will send, you'll get some notes from this class.
Before we leave, I have a tip for the women, if we've got a little time.
Sure, go ahead.
I found that, first of all, by checking what the temperature is going to be, where you're going to go. And a lot of times it's if you're going when it's in the 60s and 70s, and you're leaving at a time of year where maybe it's summer and hot, and therefore, or it's winter and cold, and where that temperate weather is hard to remember what you really need. So I tend to pack when I'm having temperate weather. In other words, it's like what jackets and weight and all that feels good when I'm out on a walk and I know exactly what I need to keep me warm. But also as a woman, I usually stay in cities and I'm usually there for a month. And so I'm looking more to blend in like a local. So I won't wear more hiking clothes type things, but it is by weight. But I will lay out my wardrobe months ahead of time. And then each week I'll go in and take one more thing out. And the other thing I'll do is I will try on all those different combination outfits, the layering, the things I think, oh, this will layer. And I actually wear it and go, yeah, that does layer nicely. And yes, I would be seen walking around London in this. On the other hand, sometimes things you think are going to layer and be comfortable, you go, glad I tried that on. So I found that just as a woman who tends to, want to look nice, but you tend to lay out. And then plus I have pretty much now a set of clothes that have kind of become my fallback. And then I keep them in a different section of the closet so that I'm not wearing them. Those are my trip clothes. So I'm sort of saving because I know they're lightweight. And I've done the Rick Steves thing where you weigh every item and use packing bags. I found are really handy because that way you can just take out what you need. But it's if you're going for a different look than the hiking look, do buy clothes that are very lightweight. And I also found that a lot of the nylon things that are supposed to be quote camping clothes, now they might wick well, but I find that they're a lot hotter than plain 100% cotton. So that's just what I found.
Yep.
But that's a trick for my fellow women travelers who I know are kind of concerned about wanting outfits. Plus, when you travel, you think, oh, I want to look nice. And I got all these new outfits and blah, 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 blah. But you'll find that you just keep taking it back, weigh them. And after a while, you can get pretty nice looking outfits that you can mix and match. Usually, if you're going to Europe, just all black and white, you'll blend in. They don't need washing because it's black, and you blend in with the crowd and you don't stand out, because Europeans and New Yorkers almost live in black because of the fact they just live in black because they're not doing a lot of washing. And I will say traveling in the summer where your clothes get sweaty is more of a problem than traveling in temperate weather where you're not washing them all the time. So,
okay. Well, thanks, Melinda, for the advice. Again, you'll get an email. I appreciate feedback. Again, suggestions about classes, or if you'd like to be a resource to share in a class, let me know. Everybody have a good day. I'm doing another class at 4 o'clock about going to Italy. That last time I was on a trip, the pilgrimage to Assisi. You're welcome to join me for that. Otherwise, have a good day. I'll see you another day.
Thank you, Russ.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.